Strategic point spotted here.
Good evening. This is Maestro Patella with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite modcast. Today, we have a 1v1 on Pale-Tooth Gorge. Our first player is Virus, Cheah18. I just call him Virus to make it easier on myself. And he is playing as the Commissar Lord. This is a slightly tanky melee hero. Only slightly tanky because his energy shield isn't that powerful, and he doesn't have as much health as most other starting melee heroes. But you still definitely use him to charge in, often to tie things up, and definitely do a lot of damage in melee, and that's definitely his main purpose. His opponent is Chupacabra, playing as the Inquisitor. This is a disabling and debuffing commander. She has abilities for snaring, stunning, even infiltrating, and she can also become a tanky melee hero with certain war heroes. Alright, long 1v1 ahead of us. Imperial Guard Mirror. Now this is a curious matchup. I've played a few Imperial Guard Mirrors in the past, not too many. There's actually an old cast of me playing an Imperial Guard Mirror on my channel, and it is a rather awkward matchup, especially I feel like because I never actually mained Imperial Guard. It's a little awkward it's a little bit awkward, I feel like, different from many of the other mirrors in the game. So one thing that can be a little tough to decide on in this matchup is your build. One thing that can definitely be pretty powerful is if you get 2 Sentinels in this build, you're probably going to be straight up at an advantage over a player who just gets a single Sentinel. Neither of these players have chosen to do that. Instead, we see Virus going for a heavy weapon team, and this is a choice that I like. Imperial Guard are typically pretty vulnerable to suppression early on, and this also does limit the effectiveness of the Sentinel since it reduces kind of just the area where the Sentinel can move around in. Just wherever the heavy weapon team is going to be set up, the Sentinel will not be able to charge forward. And this will also probably force an artillery spotter squad purchase by Chupacabra, although we'll see. It's not the only way to deal with setup teams, but it's probably the most common answer, particularly for Imperial Guard. Some people will say that artillery spotters are not really that great, but at least for the purpose of dealing with setup teams, they're generally just the easiest answer. So, I guess one of the other things I could say about this matchup is that, to be honest, a lot of the times it's a little boring and possibly lame. Like, just kind of basically what we see here. The Sentinels just firing at each other. Now, actually, the way Chupacabra is managing this is better than the way Virus is managing this. Because Chupacabra has his guardsmen out of the line of fire so that they aren't getting shot by the Sentinel. So, the Virus was taking losses to his guardsmen while Chupacabra wasn't. So he did have the better end of the way he was managing that there. However, Virus also had the heavy weapon team, so he moved that up to give him the edge in this engagement. But the micro, and I feel the way just the positioning of his units is still favoring Chupacabra more than it was favoring Virus. But these dueling Sentinel battles are actually quite boring and not particularly interesting, since we have these two. I mean, the thing about the Sentinel is actually a low DPS unit, but it works because it just does damage over time while not taking any bleed itself, and it just gets constant repairs. But when you have them fighting each other, that's 2 units that are not bleeding and also doing not a whole lot of damage to each other, so it's not the most interesting fight. But I still feel like you need a Sentinel. I still think you need at least 1 Sentinel in this matchup if you're not going to get 2 of them. Now, Chupacabra actually going for a fast tech, and you know what? He can do it because he apparently has had the better end of map control. It looks like he's had better control of the map, although it's actually Virus who's now taking it. And Virus is also... Ooh, this is actually going to be really bad for Chupacabra, because Virus is moving up Uh-oh, why did he do that? That had to be an accident. He retreated the heavy weapon team. I was going to say, he's moving up with a heavy weapon team and a Flamer Guardsman. He should not have retreated the heavy weapon team. I think with the heavy weapon team present, it would have been a very, very easy generator bash on this farm. As it is, I think he's going to get it anyway, but if he had the heavy weapon team with him, that pretty much would have guaranteed it. Although, as I said, it looks like he's going to get it off anyway. Puts down the multi-laser turret, and multi-laser turrets are often used and put down in front of generator farms to take them down. Of course, he has committed to a Flamer Guardsman purchase. Now, I mean, look at this. Chupacabra techs so fast that he's already about to have a Chimera. And, I mean, I like the generator bash, and I thought it would do well. At the very least, I think it should help keep Virus in this game. Since Chupacabra did have a very fast tech, I actually feel like he kind of needed that generator bash. And I think he'll even be able to... Let's see even how long he can hold this. Hold the multi-laser turret here, along with the Commissar here, tying things up. If he can tie up the Guardsmen, maybe even force them off and keep the multi-laser turret alive. And he's bringing up the Sentinel for support. Now, I like all this power disruption, but we're going to have the Chimera come out just about now. I think he should try to take this opportunity to finish off the power node. However, the node, for whatever reason, does not take damage from a multi-laser turret. Alright, at this point, Virus's advantage is pretty much done. But once he at least makes it to Tier 2, he'll be able to pretty quickly switch his heavy weapon team to a las cannon or an autocannon, so that he can actually threaten this Chimera. So, actually, despite the tech lead that Chupacabra had, I don't think he's actually going to be able to use it that much in terms of actually pressing the advantage of that tech lead. At least, well, he's going to be able to get it a little bit, but not much. Not much. He's got the vehicle out on the field, but Virus, I think, thanks to... He even was able to stall out that Chimera a bit because that Chimera was spending time destroying that multi-laser turret. So Virus is nearly to Tier 2, and once he's to Tier 2... Yeah, and we see he already has his upgrade for the heavy weapon team queued up. And that was obviously the most logical choice for Virus as a way of countering this Chimera. And he's getting Stormtroopers in addition to that. Now, well, the Stormtroopers, I don't know if he's going to get the anti-armor kit, but getting some kind of upgrade on the heavy weapon team was clearly the most logical choice for dealing with the Chimera. He already has this unit, so he could queue up the upgrade before Tier 2 even starts. The upgrade is relatively cheap because it's an upgrade rather than an entirely new unit. And then he can just have it set up in a position on the field ready to intercept the Chimera. And he chooses to go for the missile launcher. Now, I actually think the Sentinel missile launcher is pretty much indispensable in this matchup if you keep your Sentinel alive in Tier 2. And, I mean, to be honest, you should keep your Sentinel alive to Tier 2. It's actually pretty hard to kill a Sentinel with Imperial Guard in Tier 1, unless you have 2 Sentinels and your opponent only has 1. So I feel that's a lot of where the Sentinel comes in. Also because the Sentinel, again, the multi-laser turret is fairly low DPS. Now, the DPS of the missile launcher Sentinel is not that high, but it does have high burst damage. And the frag missiles are actually very, very powerful against Imperial Guard squads doing area of effect damage. So the frag missiles are very, very good against Imperial Guard squads. And then the crack missile, it's going to help him for dealing with things like the Chimera, as well as his opponent's Sentinel. But he needs to get this Sentinel out of there. Extremely, extremely close call. Needs to just move straight back. Sentinel cannot afford to just stay around there. It's going to go down. Alright. Alright, uses a Commissar flare to keep his Sentinel alive, but I think he should... This Sentinel is not being repaired. Oh my god. What close calls, and instead he actually takes out Chupacabra's Sentinel. Alright, so Virus was really, really playing with fire there. Like, I was really getting worried for his Sentinel, and he... Now, I think he was kind of lucky. Well, not kind of lucky, but he took advantage of the fact that the Sentinel, the crack missile launcher on the Sentinel, does actually have a very slow rate of fire. So he was able to get enough repairs in on his Sentinel after getting shot by Chupacabra's Sentinel to not lose his. So suddenly now Virus is in a pretty strong position in terms of like his army composition. He does have 5 units now to only 3 of Chupacabra, but Chupacabra does have a decent amount of resources in the bank. Could pretty easily put some stormtroopers out on the field if he wants, but instead Chupacabra is moving around with his Chimera. But here is the interception from a Virus, and oh my god, but look at the damage though on that heavy weapon team. And although the Sentinel is an answer to the Chimera, the repair support that the Chimera is getting right now is going to prevent it from being able to be destroyed by the Sentinel. Now the Sentinel missile launcher, again, as I said, it has a slow rate of fire, so overall the DPS is actually not that high, even though it does something like at least 100 damage per shot, if not even more than that. In fact, we see right here, it says 8.22 explosive DPS. So the damage per shot is fine on the Sentinel missile launcher, but it just doesn't have a very fast rate of fire. So a Chimera backed by Guardsmen can definitely out-repair the anti-vehicle damage of a Sentinel. You need something a little bit more substantial to take out a Chimera that has that kind of repair support, or you really need to shut down the Guardsmen as well with some kind of powerful anti-infantry. So Virus right there, unfortunately dropped his micro, where he says he hit X earlier than they retreated, and just lost a spot of Guardsmen, just too much range firepower. And we actually have some, let's see, from Virus we have some Assault Kit Stormtroopers, but Chupacabra, I saw he had some Anti-Armor Kit Stormtroopers, which are now inside his Chimera. These Stormtroopers, however, I feel like they should probably go home, get some healing. Virus is not going to be winning any head-to-head Guardsman fights as long as Chupacabra's Guardsmen are backed up by this Chimera, and that's definitely one of the really strong things about Imperial Guard. If you have Guardsmen backed by a Chimera, they will pretty much win any ranged fight. Even if they take losses, they will be reinforcing the losses immediately, so they won't really suffer a penalty in like their overall firepower, because the opposing squads will be losing models while the Guardsmen won't. And although the Guardsmen will be losing models, they will reinforce them very cheaply. So that's something where, I mean, typically Imperial Guard players do spend a lot of requisition in Tier 2 reinforcing Guardsmen. But if they manage it really well, they can actually cause disproportionate losses, because the losses, if they inflict losses, the losses they can inflict are usually just so much more costly. Although we are talking about Imperial Guard mirror right here. Virus gets a new squad of Guardsmen, and he does have a Manticore as well. Manticore, you know, I actually really like the Manticore choice. The Manticore, a well-timed Manticore strike, what he can do is, if the Guardsmen come out of the Chimera, can use a Manticore strike, scare... Wow. I didn't even get to finish talking. But anyway. Alright, we have the flank from the Stormtroopers. I do not like Virus's positioning at all. He needs the Manticore strike now. Like, that's the only thing that's going to save him in this engagement, and it does! Oh my. That was beautiful. Airdrop mines? Oh, a little too late. I think if those mines had been dropped way earlier, this Guardsman squad with 14 health probably would have been finished off by walking over mines in retreat. But Virus really did not have good positioning there. The Chimera was right here, and the Sentinel was above it. So the Plasma Guardsman could have really could have actually killed this Sentinel, and that would have left Chupacabra Sentinel. Wait, I forget. Either way, did not like Virus's positioning in that engagement, and it was pretty much the Manticore strike that saved him. And I think what also really helped was I think he had pretty much kept the Manticore a secret right up until that point. I think he kept it in base so it wasn't revealed. Anyway, Commissar Lord right here is now fully upgraded. Xenos Power Claw, Carapace Armor, and Stubbornness. Unfortunately, this isn't really a particularly good use of the Commissar in that particular engagement because he was completely unsupported and being kited by 3 ranged units. So he got focused down pretty quickly and didn't get to achieve a whole lot. Another thing we're also seeing, which wiped out Virus's Stormtroopers, is the Inferno Pistol from Chupacabra. This is a very nice weapon. It is a melt-a-gun for the Inquisitor. So, wow, and again, so before I can even explain what's going on, he's doing that, but this is a melt-a-weapon from the Inquisitor. So it's an anti-all weapon, will do damage to vehicles. Unlike other melt-a-weapons, it actually has either standard range or pretty close to it. Most melt-a-weapons have reduced range. And it also has that judgment ability, which we've seen used twice so far. Once used to wipe out the Stormtroopers, and then that other one nearly wiping out those guardsmen on retreat. And Virus is going to have to respect that a little bit more. He's gotten hit twice by that. I don't mean to say this condescendingly, but most of the time, I would say like high-level players very, very rarely actually get hit by the judgment ability. It threatens them and forces them off the field, but they very rarely actually get hit by the ability. Leman Russ already, and it takes out the Sentinel. Since the way judgment works, first you need to cast the judgment on the target, and then they're marked for judgment. Then you need to wait, I believe, 20 seconds, a 20-second cooldown, and then you can actually judge them, and that's where you actually get the high damaging shot. So I believe it's about 20 seconds, and the Inquisitor needs to manage her energy so that because you need to use energy for both the initial judgment cast as well as the actual judge shot. Normally, most players will simply respond to judgment by just moving that unit out of the way until the effect is cleared so that they don't get hit by it. But Leman Russ from Chupacabra, he has been at a tech lead the whole game, in part because he hasn't built as much stuff, hasn't invested as much, although he has also been suffering more generator bashes, but he's content to put down more generators. And I do remember once seeing Tex play a 1v1 game, where he lost something like 10 generators and still won the game, and he had some explanation into the rationale of why that actually works. I don't remember it, but he had an explanation for it, so let's just say that there is an explanation, even if I don't personally know what that explanation is. Anyway, Leman Russ right now, upgraded to have the elite tank crew. One of the things that is good about the Leman Russ, the default battle cannon has pretty nice splash damage, so I think the effect it's going to have right now against guardsmen is going to be pretty impressive. We'll get a closer look if it actually does take a shot. The Inquisitor, meanwhile, managing to tank against the Commissar because she had the Inquisitorial Mandate active, which actually makes her, well, the Inquisitorial Mandate War Gear granting her the Impenetrable ability, which makes her temporarily invulnerable. Also increases her speed. Ooh, Manticore, oh man. Oh, this is actually really, really bad for Chupacabra. Virus needs to keep moving. Like, he started moving that Manticore, but then stopped. Well, I guess the only other option was he was going to move it toward an Inquisitor. But I think Chupacabra's going to lose the Leman Russ anyway. All told, definitely losing the Leman Russ is definitely the bigger loss than losing the Manticore. But I still feel like that Manticore loss might have been unnecessary. Especially Virus right here did move his Commissar back to intercept the Commissar. The Inquisitor... Did I say intercept the Commissar? Intercept the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor even went down from the Commissar intercepting her. So I think if he had sent the Inquisitor, or sent the Commissar over here, tied up the Inquisitor, I think he would have been able to save his Manticore. And I mean, a Manticore is such a high-value unit. Oh, a rocket run! Let's see, can this wipe all those guard squads? Alright, at least one of those should be gone. The other one actually lives. I think that other one actually slightly lucky, but... It's actually weird. I feel like the early game of this matchup is pretty boring, since neither side... I mean, neither side really has the ability to inflict heavy losses on the other in Tier 1. And there's a lot of that just like kind of sentinel standoffs, which are really, really boring. But mid and late game, this matchup actually really does pick up. I mean, that Manticore strike we saw before, rocket runs, if guard players are saving for rocket runs, they can actually pretty reliably rely on that to actually take out Imperial Guard squads. If you hit it right, you should be able to take out 2 squads of guardsmen with a single rocket run, and possibly other things as well. The rocket run is incredibly powerful. Well, I should readjust that statement. It doesn't quite have the raw power of, say, an Eldritch Storm or a Rox, but it is an incredibly good nuke because of how reliable it is. It's pretty much guaranteed. Unless you miss, like unless you mess up as the user, it is pretty much guaranteed. And not only guaranteed on retreat as well. It also very reliably kills squads like guardsmen. The main downside to, well, the downsides to the rocket run, it's not going to be as good on like really tough squads like Tactical Marines, or maybe in this matchup against Ogrins, so it's not really going to wipe something like Ogrins. It also is, although it does damage to vehicles, it's not very effective as an anti-vehicle nuke. Anyway, positioning the heavy weapon team out of position, we've got guardsmen and stormtroopers outside of its firing arc. And Virus, it appears, yeah, he's... we actually see head-to-head tank battles, and they're pretty extended. But here comes the Stormtrooper squad moving in, but there is the Manticore Strike again. You know, I actually think the Manticore Strike is giving Virus a pretty big edge in a lot of these engagements, because he's calling down the artillery, and even if it doesn't necessarily hit, it's scaring Chupacabra and forcing off many of his units. This Leman Russ, how lucky is that Leman Russ? I don't think it's going to be that lucky. Oh, I thought it was just about going to get lucky, because all of this stuff was actually blocking line of sight from the las cannon. However, Virus's Leman Russ was able to move in and finish off his Leman Russ. So the Leman Russ is the best tank in Retribution. I think I've heard something in the lore that that Predators are actually better than Leman Russes. But in Retribution, the Leman Russ is the better tank overall, and the Predator does have better aspects to it. The Predator is a higher damage tank, but the Leman Russ tends to perform better overall because of its defense. Anyway, we have some... Ooh, here is the Manticore hunting team, and actually, I mean, I said the Manticore was giving him an edge, but then I just remembered that Manticores are a huge liability in this matchup because of Melta Stormtroopers. So a second Manticore down for Virus. So that actually does make Manticores very difficult to use in this matchup. And he's gotten a few good Manticore strikes, but I don't know if it'll be worth the resources for him to get another Manticore. And if he is going to get another Manticore, I'm going to make recommendations that might sound absolutely silly to some people, but if he is going to get another Manticore, he should also get a squad of Catachans. Mainly because the Manticore is just going to be too vulnerable to Melta Stormtroopers, that he would need a squad of Catachans to detect Stormtroopers and basically guard the Manticore. And those Catachans would pretty much just have to babysit the Manticore, so that would also be really, really expensive, and Virus does not have those kinds of resources. Virus now, though, pushing Chupacabra all the way back into his base, tries a grenade on retreat on the Guardsman with his now Castricans, but he misses it. So we have a Kasrkin squad upgraded with their sergeant. They have a sergeant upgrade right now, so now that's why we see that sergeant member, and we have a 6-man Kasrkin squad rather than a 5-man Kasrkin squad. But this Leman Russ, this particular Leman Russ, in a huge amount of trouble right now. I think it just might go. Oh, but a very nice Per Goddess from the Inquisitor. So we're seeing some pretty nice ability usage from the Inquisitor, and that actually saves this Leman Russ. Per Goddess, a very powerful tier 3 war gear for the Inquisitor, and there aren't many tier 3 war gears in this game, but the few that there are tend to be very, very powerful. Like they can really be, like they can really decide engagements all by themselves. Per Goddess in particular, it's a radial stun. I just like to use that word, radial. I don't even know if I'm using it right, but it's a radial stunning ability, which has actually a very big radius. I must be using radial correctly if there's a radius. And so it stuns things, and then where you can manually detonate the ring of fire, and where you manually detonate that ring of fire, it will also do damage. So you can really shut down an entire army just with your Inquisitor with that. Alright, our dueling Leman Russes now actually have Vanquisher cannons. And before, I liked them having just the default battle cannon, because that would do well against the guardsman squads. The default battle cannon would do some pretty nice splash to the guardsman squads, probably kill several models at a time. But I think for the Vanquisher is the best upgrade, because the biggest threats that the Leman Russes have are each other. And if one of them has a Vanquisher and the other doesn't, the one that doesn't would be at a clear disadvantage, and by extension that player would be at a clear disadvantage. Now Chupacabra is getting another Leman Russ. Now his second Leman Russ, because he already has a Vanquisher Leman Russ, he could actually afford to have a different cannon on his second one, whether he wants to keep the default battle cannon or get a Executioner cannon. I think the default battle cannon might be better because of the range issue. A Executioner Leman Russ might just have a little too much trouble getting things done with its reduced range. Alternatively, Chupacabra might even go for another Vanquisher when he can afford it, just to make sure that Virus's Leman Russ is very, very well countered. And also because the Vanquisher has the extended range. And that's another thing that really helps to make the Leman Russ the best tank. The fact that the Vanquisher cannon has the extended range. So it has longer range than the other tanks, than the Predator, than the looted tank. Well, than the Predator or the looted tank. It does not have longer range than a Fire Prism, but generally we don't think of the Fire Prism as a tank. We think of it more as a support and artillery vehicle. But Virus has managed to even out the VPs. I haven't been keeping track too much of the VPs, but I definitely at one point saw that Chupacabra earlier on, he did have a lead in VPs, something like 340 to Virus's 169. Virus is slowly evening it out. And we do see, yeah, the second Leman Russ right now does not have another cannon upgrade. I don't know if we'll see that. Chupacabra, now that he has the resources, he is getting it. And, I mean, it was a tough call. I wasn't sure that he was going to get that, because it was also possible that instead of getting an upgrade to his Leman Russ, he would save up for a different unit. Virus is getting another Leman Russ himself, since one thing that could certainly help Chupacabra is that if he got a heavy weapon team of his own. Since Virus has two heavy weapon teams, a las cannon and an autocannon, and both of those are going to be helping him to deal with Chupacabra's Leman Russes. In fact, I think that's a big part of what's giving Virus the advantage right now. These heavy weapons teams making it so that it's much, much harder for Chupacabra to approach, because, especially right now, to be honest, he's at a straight-up disadvantage. He simply doesn't have as much anti-vehicle firepower as Virus, And Virus has the snare of the las cannon. Not to mention the snare of the las cannon, but he has the anti-infantry firepower of the autocannon, which is whittling down Chupacabra's support. So all of this combined is turning the tide back in favor of Virus, but Virus should not get overzealous and extend his half-health Leman Russ unnecessarily when he already has the advantage. Get some repairs on this Leman Russ, and yeah, I actually feel like almost the necessary purchase for Chupacabra would be a las cannon heavy weapon team, because he's like he's straight up losing at this point, in part because he cannot take the middle with his current build. But I don't think it's a good idea for Virus to charge in ahead with his Commissar. I think Emperor's Wrath is a fantastic idea because it gives him all of the benefits of a Manticore, minus the risk of it getting blown up by Melta Stormtroopers. Now, Virus is choosing to be aggressive. This is going to be a Hell Fury strike. This is actually not going well for Virus. Things are starting to go back in Chupacabra's favor, because Virus is overextending past the middle without the support of his heavy weapons teams, and he's getting back-capped without adequately defending against the back-cap. And he loses Catachan Devils. What is going on? So now, ooh, and we actually have double Melta Stormtroopers. Or soon to just be single, because one of them nearly got wiped by that. And if Chupacabra can force movement on these Leman Russes, if he can force Virus's Leman Russes to move toward his natural, then that clears out the contested VP a little bit for Chupacabra to approach the middle. He might be able to use that opportunity to clear out the bunkers, although he does still have to worry about the heavy weapons teams, but I'm not liking the firing arc on these heavy weapons teams. And now Virus needs to make sure he gets the cap on his natural while it's still clear. Alright, Virus is also choosing to put his las cannon in the bunker. I'm not sure about that choice. I mean, that does give it extra range damage protection, but I mean, just the firing arcs can be a little iffy inside garrisons. But Chupacabra is making adjustments. Things weren't working out when he was approaching the middle, so he is actually putting pressure on Virus's natural, and it's working out fairly well. Virus was actually able to retake his natural, and a Manticore strike seriously threatened this Leman Russ. But here are double Melta Stormtroopers. I think this is going to be a trade. I think he's going to trade tanks. We really need the Commissar Lord to get unstunned so we can start tying things up. Can he take out both tanks? I don't think he can take out both tanks. Might be a little too much of a tall order, but the Virus was, unfortunately for him, baited into losing one Leman Russ. And, I mean, at this point, I would actually just recommend Catachans because of the fact that Chupacabra is really making very, very liberal use of these infiltrated Melta Stormtroopers. And the Inquisitor making a lot of use of that Inquisitorial Mandate. Now, while she has the Inquisitorial Mandate active, she will obviously be invulnerable, but once it's off cooldown, she's going to be clearly losing against the Commissar. Commissar right now is actually pretty legitimately tanky. Still not as tanky as other tanky melee heroes, but now he's pretty legitimately tanky. Over 1,000 hit points. The energy shield, well, it's a little tough to do. 185 times 2.5 in my head at the moment while trying to cast a replay, but I mean, that's got to be something like an extra 500 hit points from his energy shield as well. think slightly less than 500.
We're losing a requisition point.
And Commissar, I mean, now the Commissar is doing pretty well, even unsupported, although, well, still not as well as you would do supported. Manticore Strike going to go in on the Stormtroopers. Commissar needs to retreat. He got hit by Hammer of the Witches, was stunned. He's going back to Stubbornness. And he's a full level 10 now. Wow, we actually have some late Ogrins from Virus. Now, I mean, this is an interesting purchase. Some things this Ogrin purchase could do, he actually could send these in to capture the point. And I think they could actually just straight up capture this point under the fire of this Leman Russ. He's moving away when I feel like he could just put the Ogrins on the point and get the decap. He might, I would say he would take one model loss at most. And although that's expensive, I think it's actually worth it at this point just to put on that VP pressure.
Sir, we're losing a victory point out there.
Meanwhile, Melta Stormtroopers are getting the decap for Chupacabra. See, Chupacabra is right now the one who's actually exerting so much VP pressure. Oh. That call-in, I thought that was going to be an Emperor's Wrath right on those Stormtroopers in retreat, and it was not that at all. It looked like the timing for an Emperor's Wrath was going to be perfect, but, I mean, yeah, I mean, the Commissar's here. We have Stormtroopers again upgrading to the anti-armor kit. And now we actually see that Chupacabra now has his... He has a second Leman Russ again. He was able to force movement from Virus. Virus not keeping his Manticore in check. Alright, now it's not really looking good for Virus. He's, to be honest, falling apart a little bit. And that, again, that Manticore purchase, unfortunately, wasn't too well done in that particular case. I think he's going to need, like, either another Leman Russ. Well, I don't know if I think you should get a third heavy weapon team. Maybe. But now we have some Melta Stormtroopers again doing damage to this Leman Russ. This is, I mean, this Leman Russ is actually fine because it's getting repairs from the bunker, and the Stormtroopers are getting blown apart by the battle cannon. Or can the Stormtroopers finish it off? They actually can. I didn't think they were going to finish it off. So Virus now at this point has pretty much fallen apart. Only it's 115 to 27, but I think Virus at this point has actually lost the game. But Stormtroopers get wiped for Chupacabra. But Chupacabra, that was his... Wow, he lost one squad of Stormtroopers, still has 2 more out on the field. And Judgment on the heavy weapon team, and it's actually taking quite a bit of damage per shot from the Inquisitor. That's probably going to be it, actually, in favor of Chupacabra. I mean, this game is still going. He's keeping his low-health Leman Russ in the back lines, not even repairing it. Commissar switching back out to Stubbornness, probably trying to switch out to Stubbornness when the Emperor's Wrath is on cooldown. Or off-map artillery is on cooldown. And another Purgat is going to stun the heavy weapon team. New Leman Russ, but this Leman Russ, problem is this Leman Russ just has the default battle cannon, and it's up against 2 level 2 Leman Russes, one with a Vanquisher. Soon to be a triple cap for Chupacabra. I think it's pretty safe to say that this one's going to go in Chupacabra's favor. I don't think there's much Virus can do with the squads that he has left to bring it back. Well, let's see if I can speak too soon. Oh no, Melt's going in on the Leman Russ. That's going to be it for this Leman Russ. Yeah. I don't know. VPs are actually still really close, and Chupacabra's just kind of sitting here with some other stuff, but I don't see how Virus is going to be able to hold this point. And a Bane Wolf call-in, a late Bane Wolf call-in by Chupacabra. I mean, that's such a... It seems like such a weird play, but I think the point is to actually pretty much just put out a new unit out on the field in a timely manner. I don't think there's a whole lot... I don't think Virus can... I think he pretty much can't get this middle VP back.
You know we're ready.
Inquisitor is now on the point, and this heavy weapon team does not have much it can do to stop her, especially not if it's getting hit by Forgotis. So Inquisitor is definitely going to get that VP. Yeah, I mean, if we look at just look at the armies right now, this is pretty much the game in favor of Chupacabra.
Power node is ready.
Bunker left with a whole 1 hit point, and Virus actually throws in the towel. Literally no squads left, only his Commissar. 31-26, but he concedes, and that is the game. One of the longest 1v1 replays, probably the longest 1v1 replay I have ever cast. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.